I think Ron DeSantis right now is a very overpriced stock. That sweeping victory he achieved in Florida is, in to use American baseball terms, he was born on third base and thought he hit a home run.
So yes, Joe Biden turns 80 and Donald Trump's Twitter account has been reactivated. There's lots to consider in US politics. This morning we're joined by Rick Wilson, Republican strategist, who was a field director for President George H.W. Bush in his successful 1988 campaign, and is a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, which was formed as a response to Donald Trump's influence over the Republican Party. Rick, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you. Thanks for being here. Just in terms of the Lincoln Project, first of all, for those who may not be familiar, when I say it's kind of formed as a response to Donald Trump and him running as a Republican, indeed winning as a Republican, what is the idea of the Lincoln Project? Why do you exist?
Well, what the Lincoln Project was formed to do was to make sure that the small percentage of Republicans who had not fallen victim to Trumpism, this sort of nationalist populism informed by conspiracies and craziness and cruelty, had a place to go, had somewhere to focus. And so what we'd set out to do was to use the skills that we had all built in 30 years of campaigning. I'm joined by Stuart Stevens and Reed Galen and Steve Schmidt. And we built an organization that communicated very well with Republicans and said to them, listen, you may not agree with Joe Biden on everything, but you also don't think the world is run by lizard people who eat children in a pizza restaurant in New York and conspiracy theories like that. So we were able to shave off about 8% of those voters in the 2020 election, and we got about 11% of them in the 2022 election because there is a faction of the Republican Party that does not believe in this strange new world that Donald Trump has created for them.
That's really interesting. And that suggests that faction might have grown, actually, in the last couple of years.
Analytically, we know it's grown. It expanded because of the Dobbs decision, repealing Roe versus Wade. It's expanded because the types of candidates who followed Donald Trump, who did not have his celebrity cover. You know, if you acted like Donald Trump and you weren't a celebrity, people would call men with white coats and lock you in a facility because most of them just come across as insane. Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania, Kerry Lake in Arizona. There's a whole spectrum of these folks who are anathema to the values of most Americans who lean conservative. Those people are not fanatic, crazed conspiracy theorists. They're reflexive Republicans. There is a space for that part of the party to grow, or if they continue down this path, we're going to end up with a center-right party of some new description. I don't know what that's going to be, but there's a conservative majority in America. There is not an insane conservative majority in America, and the people around Trump increasingly are required to live in this sort of bubble of that combines mendacity and insanity in equal measure.
So how then though do you square that with his presidential election victory? What was that about? If this is how you're describing these people now, what happened then?
Well, Americans were conditioned by watching Donald Trump on television for 15 years on a show called The Apprentice, wildly popular. And as we discovered way back in 2015 and 16, they thought the guy they saw on TV was the real guy. They thought the sales image of Donald Trump was the real thing. So once you had Trump in office for 4 years as one of the most disastrous, calamitous presidents in our history, they understood what it was. The other reason he was able to win in 16 was he ran against the one person Americans disliked in politics more than Donald Trump's misbehavior was Hillary Clinton. And God bless her, but she is not possessed of the great felicity of politics. She's not good at the work of being a charismatic political leader. And if you were going to make this on policy, she could knock him on the ground all day long. But Donald Trump was leading a media-driven, celebrity-driven cult, and he was able to triumph in 2016. Now, groups like ours and others, and frankly, Biden running the right campaign against Trump defeated him in 2020, but it's not clear yet what the ground's going to look like in 2024.
And part of that is because, as we're reflecting today, Joe Biden turns 80. It is his birthday today, meaning he'll be 82 at the time of the next election, potentially 86 should he go on and win.
Yep.
Which is astonishing for any number of reasons. Similarly, he's not said that he's not running, which could be a safe assumption to make for somebody who would be 82 at the time of a presidential election. Do you feel like Joe Biden is fit to run for president again?
Look, I think Joe Biden as an 80-year-old is probably more fit than I am. This is a guy who has always had He's always run and ridden a bike, and he's kept himself, in terrific
He
condition.
fell off his bike, of course.
Well, it
Not long
happens.
ago.
Listen, I can fall down a flight of one stairs, but Biden is in good physical shape. He's a guy. But look, the mileage shows on all of us. Time comes for all of us. I would put a guy who is in good physical shape and takes care of himself over a guy who still eats filet-o-fish sandwiches and Big Macs at the age of 70, whatever, and eats his steaks covered with ketchup. Well done. But look, we're going to see both of those men are not young guys. Neither one of them is a young guy. It is a factor that is pendant in this race. We don't know where it's going to go yet. But I will say this. Donald Trump will do everything he can to try to turn Joe Biden's alleged age and infirmity into an issue. I don't think Biden is going to do the same because that's not in his character. But that's why outside groups like mine exist, so we can, visit the same pain he's visiting on Biden back onto him.
Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is 44 years old. He had quite a convincing victory, actually, in the midterms just a couple of weeks ago, and is being touted, actually, as the next Republican nominee. Do you think that's safe money?
I think Ron DeSantis right now is a very overpriced stock. That sweeping victory he achieved in Florida is, to use American baseball terms, he was born on third base and thought he hit a home run. Florida's Republican Party is the best in the country. I know. I worked in it, helped build it for 30 years. It is brutal. It is effective. It has an unlimited amount of money. The Florida Democratic Party cannot organize a two-car motorcade. The number of competent political operators and strategists in the Florida Democratic Party could sit around a 6-person coffee table. And so but DeSantis's win in Florida, it's, what, is he not supposed to do that? It's the best party in the country, best GOP in the country. So, DeSantis has a few other issues that I think people are not exposed to yet. They've seen him in commercials so far. The guy is not good in person. He does not make eye contact. He is not warm. He is not charismatic. And there's no sense of humor there.
Right.
So there's a big chip on his shoulder that is rather obvious to most people who know him.
And it's what you're contrasting then, his performance in Florida versus his potential national performance.
That's right.
Because in Florida, he won on issues like race and religion and gender and sexuality and the pandemic. And
in
all
a
of these
very,
things.
very, very, very conservative. Look,
Right.
I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. I still live in Florida for whatever damn reason. And the state is as truly insane as you think it is, and is as truly far to the right as you think it is. It's not just like the ha-ha cliches of wacky Florida man. It is a state that is incredibly right-wing. I mean, shockingly, terrifyingly, incredibly right-wing. And I don't mean that conservative. I mean, look, I live in the Panhandle of Florida, in Tallahassee, Florida. Within 100 miles of me are more members of the Klan than exist probably in the rest of the country.
Gosh.
There is a white nationalist streak in Florida, and it is a state where a lot of old, white, angry, conservative people moved from the upper Midwest. And they love them some Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, well, indeed. And that much has been borne out, hasn't it, in the last couple of weeks. Would you describe yourself, would you affiliate with any party now? Are you still a Republican?
No, I'm a registered independent in
Right.
Florida. I'm a non-party affiliated voter in our weird Florida way. Look, I'm still in a fundamental way a traditional fiscal conservative. I'm a George H.W. Bush conservative. That's who I worked for when he became president. I worked in the administration, and he was the role model for me. There was decency and compassion and dignity and the desire to have a free market and to have individual liberty and the Constitution and the rule of law be the defining characteristics of the party. And now it's own the libs, yell louder, be more cruel, see who you can hurt this day. Let's put LGBT people in camps and all these other things that they're sliding down into, not even very subtly. I mean, it went from, we're going to repeal the Dobbs decision on Roe versus Wade, no matter what you feel about abortion, to having governors and legislatures in multiple states pass laws that pay people a bounty for reporting a woman who seeks an abortion. That's not conservative. That's insane.
So you're anti-Trump. You're against the slippery slope of Republicans disappearing down that sort of extreme rabbit hole.
Nationalist authoritarian statism. Yeah.
What are you for, and who are you for?
Well, right now, I don't have a candidate for president, beyond Joe Biden. Joe Biden, I don't agree on a lot of policy. I like him personally. He's an affable gentleman. He's a good guy. He's not a guy who was driven to public service to make $1 billion or to go beyond the sort of ambit of a traditional Democratic poll. I'd love to see a presidential candidate who was center-right, who got back to the traditional ideas that individual liberty and personal responsibility and fealty to the American Constitution, which is the greatest gift my incredibly screwed up country has ever had, would be center stage. Look, I'm a big fan of people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. I'm a fan of Liz because I worked for her dad years ago. But all these people that are out there in the sort of Republican diaspora, they don't have a structure they can go to yet. They don't have an infrastructure. They don't have a party. They don't have a place they can return to. So right now, the sort of behavioral republicanism that continues to inform, how people vote, is reinforced, unfortunately, by this massive media infrastructure on the right in America, where it's not just Fox News at the top. There are a dozen other conservative networks and this sewage pipe from Facebook that feeds every Republican and every conservative in America the constant message of you either stick with Trump or you're going to have, mandatory transgender gay Sharia marriage in every classroom. And they say these things in this, you read these things, they're completely nonsensical, but they're pounded into the brain of every Republican voter in the country every single day.
It's really interesting, that kind of spread of nonsense. That undermines actually democratic processes, and we see that. Yeah,
no question.
Really fascinating. So we're a couple of years out from the next presidential election. I'm trying to pin down whether you or who you think will be in the race. Is Donald Trump realistically going? He says he's running. He's up there.
If Donald Trump,
he'll be tweeting about it.
If Donald Trump drops dead tomorrow, he's still going to get 10% of the Republican vote.
Right. Yeah.
And the reality is very simple. Donald Trump is a slightly diminished figure in the Republican base right now. However, not a single Republican candidate considering this race, whether it's Ron DeSantis or Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz or Rick Scott or anyone else even dreaming about it, not one of them has his kind of cruel, feral skill at dismantling an opponent during a debate. Not one of them has the ability to sit down toe-to-toe with this guy, because Ron DeSantis is my height. He's 5'10". He's a little pudgy. I don't like me. And Donald Trump is going to go on stage and call him Little Tater or whatever he makes up, whatever nickname he makes up.
Sanctimonious.
And he's going to just jab that knife in over and over again. And he's going to start making jokes about his wife. And DeSantis will not be able to process it. None of them can. So Donald Trump, even in a diminished state, holds 15-20% of the Republican vote. He's going to win the primary. He's going to be in the race. It's going to be Trump versus Biden.
Rick, it's so good to speak to you.
Naturally.
Thanks for taking
Callum.
the time. Great to see you. Rick Wilson from the Lincoln Project. Your thoughts on what you've just heard, very welcome, of course. Text 87222 and start your message with the word Times.